think outside the box, if you will. I mean, go there, go off campus. Let's think this through. And sure enough, that's where the Mustang was born. When it finally hit, it took the country by storm.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Cars in Context. I'm your host, John Clor. You know, this is the Motor City, and this is the show where we put cars into the context of your everyday life. We love to celebrate the great automotive heritage we have here in the Grosse Points, but we will make no apologies for our decidedly Detroit perspective. And today we're going to give you perspective on something that's really important. It's about how the EPA has this little shell game. It's called EPA credits, and how they manipulate that shell game to get their laws, which are really kind of unmeetable, passed and allowed by the automakers to make it happen. It wouldn't happen without this little shell game. And to sort it all out for us, we brought in none other than Chris Sawyer. Chris, thank you so much for joining us again.
Well, you owe me lunch, so.
Well, okay, you're on fine. If you can figure out, I know the virtualdriver.com, the editor and founder is here, so I'm expecting you to make this clear, because this whole credit thing and how they shuffle the
You want me to make something the government does clear.
Yeah, that's going to be impossible. So
hell's wrong with you?
Well, so including with lunch will be beer.
Okay.
Okay.
I could probably do it then.
All right, but before we get to the topic of the day, folks, and put Chris in the driver's seat, we're going to find out what's happening
in the news.
Right? Thank you. Well, let's talk about one of our favorite topics here on Cars in Context, and that's about electric vehicles. Did you know that EVs, that they call them for short, are not really going to save the world?
You've been reading The Virtual Driver, have you?
I have.
Yeah.
It's a great blog, by the way. In fact, EVs now, folks, may actually be helping to pollute China.
Really?
I'm not making this up. Yes. Now, here's one.
If you were, it would be better than this.
I know, but we've noted this on previous shows, and now it's just raising eyebrows, even among the little tree huggers out there.
Yeah, because now they're caught with their pants down. What else?
Well, among other things, but the environmentalists now who claim that electric vehicles are better for the environment, a new report shows that one of the materials used to make the lithium-ion batteries that EVs all use, which is the element is graphite. This graphite is really adding to a huge pollution problem in China. And China, as you know, produces most of the world's graphite, and it's now closing graphite mines and closing all the graphite processing plants. Why? Because it's messing up their air and their water, these huge graphite plants.
So let me get this straight.
Okay.
A communist country can't get its pollution under control because it's being controlled by the state. Funny how those of us in the free part of the world can take care of this and they can't.
It's amazing. In fact, some analysts are saying, Chris, that because they're trying to keep this from getting so out of control, it's going to pollute all their water. They're saying it could drive the price of this graphite up 30%, which will be passed along to you, our dear electric vehicle buyer.
And you know what will happen before that?
No.
They'll find other sources for it and do it there.
Well, thanks for bringing that up.
There
Well,
you
come
go.
on, why don't you give me something?
Okay. A new survey from Harris Interactive shows that Americans want the government to do more
What?
to spur the use of diesels.
Really?
In the study that was commissioned by Audi,
Well,
wait a minute,
wait.
they sell a lot of
Diesels.
yeah.
Well, okay, but
65% of those who polled said they would support lawmaker efforts to make diesels more accessible, and 66% think the government should offer a tax incentive for clean diesels.
I'm okay with that.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I want them to just lower the price on the damn diesel fuel. Come on.
Okay.
Interestingly, 57% feel the government has unfairly favored hybrids and electrics over diesel cars.
Really?
You know, it's funny you should say that, because even the EPA testing for fuel economy is biased towards hybrids.
Plus, they're spending money on pushing EVs.
Absolutely.
EPA is spending your money.
Absolutely. You'll notice if you get a diesel car and you drive anywhere near smoothly, well, it's just funny, it sounds like a show we did about bad drivers, that if you drive smoothly, that you'll way beat that number that the EPA
people
gives
complain
you.
they don't make the number.
The results show that if diesel fuel was priced similar to gasoline,
Yeah.
it could have a bright future. 59% of the 18 to 34-year-olds said they would purchase a diesel-powered vehicle if the fuel costs were the same. But the funny thing was, it used to be cheaper.
How does this happen?
Because
Chris?
they put taxes on it because they wanted the over-road truckers to pay for all the damage they do to the road. Well, actually, it wasn't even that because they were siphoning that money off for other things. But
And they weren't even spending it
it
on
was
the
just a way to
roads.
say,
We've done a show
"Hey."
on that too.
Yeah.
You took the money from us to fix the roads and you spent it on whatever.
Yeah.
God, it makes you crazy.
I'm crazy to begin with.
Let's find some good news in here, will you?
All right, you're up.
God, wait a minute.
There
Wait a
isn't
minute.
any good news.
Oh, here's some good news. We did a show about ethanol, E15.
Yep.
All right, and here's
One of my
the idea.
favorite fuels.
Yeah, yeah, and the idea of making fuel from corn is not a real sweet thing for the EPA anymore.
It's not a sweet thing for anybody. What do
Well-
you think caused all the problems in Egypt?
You're exactly right. We've pointed this out. And if you haven't been paying attention, folks, this whole idea of fuel from corn. Back in 07, Congress passed the Renewable Fuel Standard, which was issued by your buddies in the EPA.
Not my buddies.
I know. They required our country to use 36 billion, that's with a B, gallons of renewable fuel by 2022. Say that like a Jersey at 2022.
Is that what you're talking about?
That's right. Of course, the only fuel made available in the quantity was corn-based ethanol. Funny how that worked with all the subsidies.
Yeah.
But fracking and shale revolution that's going on right now has really dropped the price of fuel and brought supply up. And so now they're saying, well,
And if we
don't-
opened up that pipeline to Canada,
Oh, if
hey,
we would just get that pipeline open. But now they're saying, well, we don't need this much corn. And not only that, Chris, this E15 ethanol blend that we've been talking about on our show, it really does damage older engines.
it
And
damages newer ones too.
yeah, so
Because they're not designed for it.
so what's the answer, folks? The answer is the EPA now is thinking of proposing to slash the target by 3 billion gallons, and maybe they've bit off more corn than they can chew.
We'll keep them regular.
Pop me out another one, will ya?
Okay. Speaking of the EPA,
Okay.
here's one on the cost of the cafe standards. That's
Okay,
the
I'd lo-
corporate
I'd
average
lo-
fuel economy.
Cafe, that's what it means. It's
Cafe.
not the place you go for your breakfast.
A study by the Center for Automotive Research it says that if the Obama administration follows through with its plans to have the EPA push fuel economy regulations to 60 miles per gallon by 2025.
60?
Why don't we just make it 100? Let's be
Yeah,
reasonable.
now.
Come on.
We should just run on air.
It's going to add $6,400 to the price of the average car.
Wait,
That's
$6,400?
$6,400 today's money.
Oh,
It'll
man.
be more by then. The study says that the move will force most Americans to hold on to their older cars longer, which could cost 220,000 jobs at car companies and up to 1.3 million jobs if you include the supplier companies. Reuters reports that the lower sales could cost the industry $62 billion.
Yeah, but Al Gore said you'd save it all on
What
fuel
the
economy.
hell does he know?
Well, he lives in a big fancy house down in Tennessee.
Yeah, which is not the least bit fuel efficient.
Well,
I
good-
can say that because
now we're talking about fuel. Let's
Yeah.
talk about something else we used to talk about on the show. One of your favorite fuels, compressed natural gas, CNG.
new gas was going to end up here somewhere.
We always talk about
Feeling
gas
a little
on the show.
gassy here.
Yeah, it must be the time we tape this.
Yeah, could
Anyway, for tanks for the gas, Chrysler, because Chrysler used to make tanks, and now they're really good at rethinking gas tanks, especially for CNG. Did you know, folks, that the big problem, if you've been watching Cars in Context, you'd know this. And if you have been watching us, you really need to make more time for better things in life, like our show, or go on to the YouTube channel and you see Cars in Context TV. Because we're talking about stuff that's important. And that's why isn't CNG being used in your cars? Why are we not driving around on natural gas? If we got so much natural gas, I mean, if the country, no, not you,
Oh.
no, the country. If we have so much, why don't we use it in our cars? Here's why. Because the tanks required to put that in our car would be gigantic. I mean, they'd take up your whole trunk. You'd have to put them on top of your car. You'd look ridiculous. That's why.
I do anyway, but
Well, that's true. Well, it's just a haircut. No, but anyway, so now Chrysler is saying, well, there's got to be a better way. So what have they turned to get an idea? The human lungs. They said, you know how lungs work? They have these little,
Alveoli?
Here's the Chrysler engineer said they're studying the human lung because inside our lung we have these little individual sacs called alveoli, and what they do is they expand capacity as you breathe in, and then they shrink as you go down. So that's what they're using. Hey, what an idea! What if we made CNG tanks that would expand and contract like these, and then we could shape them inside the car?
yeah, that's what the real problem is.
Yeah,
'cause
that's what
it's
it
under
is.
such pressure.
So that's what they're trying. So they wouldn't fill up. That's what Chrysler is trying to do. And you wondered why they had all those pinup calendars on the engineering stands. They're looking at lungs. No, I'm joking. Sorry. Just kidding.
No.
No, listen, spouse
No.
time. Yeah, well, these are good ideas here.
No.
So car trivia time's coming up. This is the
Let's
time.
get to it now.
Okay. This is the time when we throw out a question, and we hope you don't use Google or Siri. Just use your mind.
Oh, yeah, really?
Okay. Okay. We're going to ask you this question, and we'll give you a few minutes to think about it. When we come back after the break, we'll give you the answer. Here is today's weekly trivia question.
Okay.
It's, when were seat belts first fitted into a motor vehicle? When did we have the very first?
I mean, the first time ever, or the first time in production?
First time in a production motor vehicle. Not that doesn't count for if you're just say some kind of crazy driver that thought of them back in the 1500s. You know, parachute.
No, but I mean,
strap.
in production?
No,
or
this is
just
the very
somebody,
first time they were
okay,
fitted. The
so
very
first time ever fitted
not
to
a
an
production
actual
car.
vehicle,
We're
not a
talking
race
about
car.
the 60s when we were mandated. We're talking about the very
Okay.
first one. So think about that, and we'll give you the answer right after the break. Hi, and welcome back to Cars in Context. I'm your host, John Clor. Today we're talking to Chris Sawyer of thevirtualdriver.com. Chris, thanks for coming back to Cars in Context.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
He's
I
on
can't
the
even get my...
too tired to talk. Listen, Chris.
It's okay.
Yeah, we're going to need help from the EPA today, because this is a great show where we're going to explain to people this whole cafe shell game that they're playing and what the cafe standards mean. When you hear that term, you really need to know about it. But before we do that, it's really fair if we give everyone out there in TV land, I love to say that.
TV Land?
Yeah.
You like to watch it on TV.
Yeah, it's true. We want to give you the answer to this week's weekly trivia question. And here was the question. I'll repeat it for you. When were seat belts first fitted into a motor vehicle? And the answer, drum roll, it was first fitted in 1902. And this is the car. It's a 1902 Baker Electric Streamliner race car. This car, they felt they needed seat belts because they were going to try to set a speed record. And what happened with this car is it crashed when it hit 100 miles an hour on Staten Island, New York in 1902. The car did crash. The driver was said to have survived, he thinks, because he was wearing a seatbelt.
So why is it taking all these years for people to... Never mind.
Now you're going to go and talk about human nature. Oh my gosh. So that was a great... Now, if you got that trivia question, you're really good. Seriously, because I would have never guessed
Or
it.
just
And
a
I thought I
nerd.
know my car stuff, so very cool. But now, listen, let's get into our show topic. You're in the driver's seat now. You're going to have to explain it to us, because when somebody says cafe standard, that doesn't mean you want to go up and get a latte and a scone for your little cafe at the corner.
No. Corporate average fuel economy.
Corporate average cafe, okay. And that's what the government, the EPA more specifically, has been using to mandate its law that says on an average, you dear car
Your
company,
fleet
your
of
fleet
vehicles.
of cars has to meet a certain level of fuel economy.
That's everything from your smallest car to your biggest pickup truck.
Okay, so some people right off of the top would say that's not fair, because car companies like Kia don't have an F-150.
They're not a full-line manufacturer.
So they're under the same set of rules, so they can say, oh, we're the greenest car company. Really? Because you don't make a truck. So how can you say that? It's just not fair. You know, you're not comparing apples to apples. Other car companies, which just sell like big numbers of trucks, maybe even heavy-duty trucks, they have to meet that same standard. But how is that? How does the EPA juggle if you sell so many electric cars or so many plug-in hybrids or how many trucks? How do they juggle it all? How can the law be actually applied to the car companies?
Huh?
Chris.
Oh,
Chris, I'm
sorry.
it's confusing, Chris. Help us here
It's
in Cars
making
in
me
Context.
crazy. Really, what happens is this. They say, let's say, for example, you've got to meet 2025 standards of 54 miles per gallon.
Right.
Or 2020, whatever it is. And you can't do it with your current
No.
technology. So
And they
say,
don't want you to go out of business.
here's what we're going to do.
Okay.
You build a plug-in electric vehicle,
Okay.
a hybrid that plugs in. We're going to give you a credit of 1.5 vehicles, meaning that you
For
can...
the one.
For that one. So you get a 0.05 kicker.
Okay.
Now, let's say you're going to we want you to build a hybrid pickup truck.
Okay.
If you do that, we're going to give you 2 vehicles. But if you make that a plug-in hybrid electric pickup truck, we're going to give you 3.
So
They're bribing you.
These are, and they just want you to, even though you may not be able to sell these cars.
Exactly.
These aren't really
This
things
is-
that you can make a
we're-
profit on.
We go back to Sergio Marchionne saying, don't buy my Fiat 500e because I can't afford it. I'm losing $14,000 on each one.
This is crazy. So the
Sure
government,
it is. The government's involved.
okay, well, here's my issue then, Chris. They're asking you to build something you know you can't make a profit on.
Yeah.
Because we want you to build it because we know more. We know what you should be doing. How is this possible?
It's the government. We know it. We know it's better for you than you do.
So how does the little guy make out on this if he doesn't
Like a
have...
bandit if he buys some of these vehicles. Look at what's happened to the Nissan Leaf. They weren't selling there for a while, so there was all this money on them. You could go into a dealership and say, oh, you know, the $22,000 car, well, you get this amount of money from the taxpayer, get this amount of money from those so-and-so. Well, by the end of it, you're walking out the door for about $16,000.
Oh, but Chris, I have a problem with that. Here's my problem. So I don't want to buy an electric car, but you're taking my tax money and you're giving it to a guy to buy his car.
The American taxpayer is paying himself, is what it is. They're not giving you money. They don't have money. The money is yours. You're the one who creates all of the economic activity that creates the money that goes forward. So you're the engine for all of this, and they just print the money. So they take that money out of your pocket, and they give it back to you, and you say, look at the money you just made. No, you didn't. It's like when people say, you know what, we should have free health care, let's say. We're going to give subsidy for this and that and the other thing. You really know how that works? The money isn't coming from the government. It's like, John, could you give me the money for my health care this month?
Right now I'm going to give you health care.
Yeah, okay. Now you want a subsidy? I got to give you that. You're
just
passing money back and forth.
But
That's
I
how
paid
this
for it.
works.
Yeah.
We all pay for it.
So Chris, so what you're trying to tell us is the EPA's credit system, this where you get credits, they've written this law and they know darn well there's no way that full-line manufacturers or certain
It's
manufacturers...
an incentive to keep you going because they know that you can't reach that standard that day, but they also don't want the whole thing to collapse, so they could keep pushing. What's that saying, kicking the can down the road?
Yeah.
Until that time the technology catches up and everybody can afford it and you can do it.
Or that you could repeal the law because you know it's unobtainable.
Oh, right.
So you
That's
can go
going to
back-
happen?
Well,
I'm sorry, where have you been living?
well, you can't possibly meet 200
What they
miles
can
per
do, what they can do is they can say, well, we're going to postpone that.
Oh, postpone it.
Yeah, we're just
Ad
gonna postpone
nauseum.
it. They're never going to repeal it, no.
You know, see, this is really a problem, folks. Basically, what it is, it's a shell game. Okay, here's you got to build this. Oh, but if you build that, I'll put it over here. And if you get 2.5, you're only building one vehicle, but I'll give you credit for 3 if you build the cars that I want you to build. Why do they want us to build these things?
Because they believe they know better
Than what we want.
than what we want. And part of the problem has been in the past that fuel prices were too cheap, as they say.
Oh.
And so we were profligately going through this. We had to raise prices. That's BS. And let me tell you why. Because if we were profligately going through this, what would happen is the price would rise as the oil became more scarce.
Correct.
But what happened instead? We found more oil because we had an incentive to find more oil.
Right.
We're sitting on 1.4 trillion barrels of oil that we haven't gone to get yet because we have an administration that won't let us do it. We could do it, and we could do it in a very clean way. But why aren't we doing it? Because the enviro-weenies don't want us to do it.
They want us to do
don't-
something else.
Dirty oil. What's dirty about oil?
Dirty coal.
Dirty coal, dirty oil. Really? There's nothing clean about about electric vehicles because where's the power coming from? Where's the lithium coming from? Where's the graphite coming from? Where are all the rare earth metals coming from?
Yeah.
What are you having to do to get those? If you really look well to wheel, as they like to say,
Yep.
there's more energy in an electric vehicle than there is in a gas vehicle.
Wow.
There's more CO2 in an electric
Yeah.
vehicle than a gas
Yeah,
vehicle.
and folks, you know,
And
that,
CO2 is not a bad thing because you exhale it every time you breathe.
so stop breathing if you want to save the
There you
environment.
go.
Everyone,
Save the
okay, so
planet.
that's it, folks. We
Save the planet.
Figured
Die.
it out, how to stop global, I mean, that's not called global warming now because it's not warming. It's
Climate change.
climate change.
Yeah, which isn't happening
Stop
either.
which, by the way, we did a show about. And the answer was to stop breathing so the CO2 wouldn't go out. No, but here's the answer with the EPA, folks. Let's face it. These credits that we get, the answer is they're trying to build all these different kinds of vehicles for one specific reason, and that is they have an agenda. That's the
Yes.
that's the reason they want to do it. And they say they want
And
to push us to
this bubble will pop at some point. This
it has
bubble
to.
will pop. But the question then becomes, who's going to be around to pick up the pieces?
Well, here's where you can see. Here's a hint. Go look at what has happened in Australia, who adopted a cap-and-trade system, and just now. the
Yeah, that was
economy-
fun. I love
The auto
that.
industry failed there. The economy is failing there. Now the government there is trying to go back and repeal cap
Oh,
and trade.
it was worse than that. They voted the bums out.
Yeah, I mean, that's right.
Yeah, they voted them out.
So they realized-
because the guy said the first thing I'm doing is getting rid of cap and trade.
Well, and this is the issue is, it's good. No, do we need a mix of solar and wind? Sure. But what happens when the wind doesn't
Let
blow and
the
the sun
market
doesn't?
decide
that's
how
the
you're
problem.
going to do it.
That's the
People who say 30% of our energy could be provided by wind power, there are a couple of things wrong with that. Number one, it doesn't blow all the time, so you don't get the wind turbine moving. Number two, those things are ugly. And number three, have you seen all the fires that are caused in Europe by giant wind turbines because the bearings, they're not there. The lubricants are not there to protect these things. There's an awful lot of force in there, and they start on fire, and they cause forest fires.
Yeah.
Oh gosh!
Oh, that puts CO2 into the air.
Yeah, really funny.
Oh, it's a nasty thing, isn't it?
Let's plant some trees.
So thank God we had Chris Sawyer here from thevirtualdriver.com to
You
tell us
did?
about the. Yeah, he was right here.
Where-
What happened to
I
him?
didn't-
Did he?
where'd he go?
He's right here.
Oh.
Thank God, because now we know that this little EPA credit shell game, don't buy what the government tells you to buy. Buy what you like and want. This is still
Exactly.
America until we hear differently. And thank you, Chris, for sharing that. But we have something else that's even more fun.
Pick of the week.
Pick of the week. This is where
I
we.
guessed correctly.
He's so good at this. He's been here before. This is where you send me a pic, or we find a pic, or somebody just says, "Hey, check out this picture." Sometimes, though, folks.
Yeah, but I usually open those and I get spam or I
Yeah,
get
and then
my
then you got to
computer
put your
goes
computer
down.
into the shop. And I hate when you do. Stop sending me those. You people, you know who you are. You Russian terrorists. Was it a Russian terrorist? A Chinese hacker? I don't know. Anyway, this one.
I'm not getting in the middle of that one. They come after my site a couple
I know
of
they
times.
have. What's wrong with you people? Go get a life.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's what we wanted to show you. Sometimes we don't get a pic. We get a video. Yeah.
Oh,
So pick of the
hopefully
week-
not one of those.
Well, no, not that.
Okay.
This pick of the week was sent to us because it's really, really, to me, crazy and interesting. Because if you think you know cars and how cars work, there's an engine, and then inside the engine is a little crankshaft, and the pistons go up and down. This is crazy. So this pick of the week comes to us from a very good friend of mine who said, "You have to see this. You won't believe it." And here it is. This is a Adams Farwell. It was a car that was built in Dubuque, Iowa, from 1890 through 1930. Check this out, Chris. Oh, look at that.
It's a rotary, but the engine moves.
The engine is spinning.
Well, that's the way it used to be on some of the
What?
World War I airplanes.
That-
The
Oh.
crank stays
That's
still,
a great point.
and the outside of the engine goes around.
No, now that's the little fuel bowl.
Yep, that's the flip bowl.
Check
I have no
this
idea what
out.
that is.
Check this. This is the
first rotary engine, the
This is
Wonkel?
the only
Wow.
Adams Farwell automobile left in existence. It
Probably
was at
because all the other people lost their hands going, oh, look at that.
the necktie got pulled into the engine when they looked down in it.
Yeah.
This was at Pebble Beach, and even though this car was built all the way through 1890 through 1913, this is the last one left. There it is, the owner there. This unique engine with the crankshaft being stationary and the engine spinning around a stationary crankshaft. One of a kind. That's why he probably brought it to Pebble Beach. How cool is that?
That's wild.
You think you knew everything about cars, and now we brought this.
Now you know that you don't.
Thanks for sending that to me. If you have a cool video or a pick of the week, you can send it to me, J. Clor at carsincontext.com, and we'll see if it's crazy enough to put on the air. When that one was definitely crazy. But that's not all.
No.
Yeah, we have our favorite segment, which is Pride in My Ride. This is where you, the viewers, get to send me a picture of your car and tell me why you have pride in your ride, and we put it on the air and we talk about it. It's where you can be famous and be on WMTV all by your lonesome, and you and your car. So this picture, we have to show you that we met this wonderful lady, and here it is. This is Gail Wise. She lives outside of Chicago, and she says what she has there has been documented as the very first Ford Mustang sold to a retail customer in the United States of America. Gail was a young school teacher in Chicago who wanted a convertible, and 3 days before the Mustang was launched in 1964, she walked into her dealership, and Chris, she saw this powder blue little convertible. It was in the back room with a cover over it, and the guy said, "I don't want to lose you. I don't have a convertible, but I'm going to sell this in a couple of days. Come on back and look at it." He pulled the cover on this beautiful blue Mustang. She loved it, and he said, "I can't really sell it till April 17th. Oh, what the hell?" And he wrote it up, And this car was
So
actually.
she bought it, but she didn't get the car.
She bought it and got it and
Oh,
drove it home.
really?
Two
She
days
drove it home
Yeah,
really
before the
early?
Mustang. So she was kind of a
Wow.
celebrity in Chicago.
No
The
kidding.
car had been.
Everybody was hot for teacher at that
Oh,
point.
was it ever? She said I was the most popular teacher in school.
I'm sure she was.
And not only that, she kept it, and after her kids grew up and they stored it and her husband restored it, she's now she's on the 50th anniversary thing, and she's a big celebrity again. She said
Cool.
the Mustang has made her famous. Thanks, Gail, you're a lot of fun to be with. Thank you for sending that to me. And if you have a picture for me on Pride and Ride, send it to me, jclor.carsandcontext.com, and we'll put it on the air, but there's even more. This is your favorite part of the show.
This is our viewers' favorite time.
This is because you get to see Lauren Perry, who's got her own show, come out and bring us viewer mail. Lauren, you did it again?
I did. You told me this is your favorite part of the show.
That's right, it is.
Come on, Cindy watches.
But Lauren, we do love it when you bring out our mail. Cindy, you have to understand, it is fun when Lauren does
I'm a
this.
dead man, aren't I, Cindy?
Okay, Chris, why don't you
This
take
one
that
comes
first
to
one?
us from Richard L. of Grosse Pointe Park, who watches Cars and Context and Lauren on Comcast
he does, he
Cable
does.
Channel 915.
Okay.
Dear Chris, I see where first Microsoft passed on Ford's Alan Mulally as its next CEO, and
Yeah.
now Ford is soon to dump Microsoft as a supplier.
Okay.
Do you think the switch to BlackBerry's QNX operating system for Ford's sync technology instead of Microsoft will help Ford's quality surveys that sank because of software problems with sync?
Well,
Hell
there's
yes.
a little sync screen. Remember how this syncs? What would it do, Chris? Would it like?
It would
block
freeze.
Oh, it freeze?
It would freeze. It would
It says
send you
reboot?
somewhere else. You know,
Yeah.
I had an MKX for a test vehicle, and I couldn't adjust the volume.
Oh,
And I would have to turn it off, turn it back on, wait a little while, and then I could adjust the volume.
oh Lord.
And I started pressing buttons all over the
You know,
place,
this is
trying
a-
to get it to do something.
Yeah.
And I came up with a screen that the Ford people said, "You're not supposed to see that screen."
Wow. See, this is a problem. And this is a shame, folks, because Ford had they had the highest ratings in the industry for a while, and all of a sudden, people said, I can't, when they introduced Sync, they thought this is a great new technology, and when it didn't work, it wasn't really, it was the software had some glitches, and people got so
Yeah.
upset with it, they rated Ford low, even though the car quality was the same, it was just using this.
Yeah, and it's not really a quality
It's
issue.
never-
It's
yeah,
just, it's
okay.
just a
Well, very good question.
convenience issue.
Well, maybe they will. We'll see what happens with this new, what is
The
it called?
QNX will work,
We'll see what
yeah.
happens. That's a good question. Thank you for sending that in. I've got one. This one comes to us from Mike Z of St. Clair Shores, and he
Who
wants
watches this on AT&T UFirst
yeah,
Channel
yeah,
99?
yeah,
You know, I do too.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's see, folks, they said it's hard to find us. It's not. Just go to,
And I got to make sure I don't watch this one because I'm going to be in trouble.
yeah, you're in trouble. Yeah, make sure Cindy's out when she's watching this one. Lauren comes up in the mail. I got a Dear John letter, and this one says, John, I have ideas on how to make your weekly car trivia better. Okay.
I want to hear this.
It says, why don't you give away free prizes for people who can...
Oh, sure, free prizes, yeah.
can
How
come
about
up-
money next?
Well, yeah. He wants free prizes for people who come up with the right answer on Cars and Context trivia. And he said, while you're at it, don't make the question so hard nobody knows that old
Well,
car.
wait a minute. If we don't make them hard, then how are you supposed to know that there's how are you supposed to weed out the wheat from the chaff? And besides, we give you the answer 2 minutes
Yeah, come
afterwards.
on, just wait 2 minutes, Mike.
So what do we...
All right, I'll tell you what
It
I'll
was
do,
Mike.
folks.
Mike did it. Yeah, okay.
Mike,
No.
here's what I'll do. I will think of something. We do have lots of cool free stuff.
We
can
have
do.
we could have two questions and one a long-term one that they can
Yeah.
write into us.
I'll sit down with Lauren and Jeremy, and we'll come up with a way to give some free stuff away. But thank you for watching. Chris, we're out of time.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I can't believe it. You know, now that we exposed the EPA shell game, and now we have to go. But we'll come back for another show soon. We really appreciate you watching, though, folks. This has been a lot of fun. And don't forget that knowledge that we try to impart here is
that what you
power.
mean?
Yep. Yep.
Oh.
I've been your host, John Clor. Thanks for watching.